Hello, this is episode 2 of the chicks. In this episode, I say that my chicks are in my bedroom and they're doing well, and they're tiny. They're little fluffy yellow chicks, 1 day old, which I bought. And I was actually telling you that this all happened in 1958, about the middle of 58, and I had them in a box alongside my bed, so that, I don't know why, because I think I was a little bit concerned. I wanted to make sure they were okay. And they cheeped continuously. Cheep, 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 cheep. There were 7 of them. Cheep, 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 cheep. And I had them in the bed. I had the warmth with the lamp to keep them warm. They had the food, the chick feed and the water and sawdust. And I think I mentioned to you that one thing that I had learnt, that you had to keep an eye on their droppings. And if you see there's any blood in their droppings, this is a sign of a disease which chickens can get, called coccidiosis. So that was probably why I had them next to my bed, to keep an eye on them. Because I'd never had chickens before, and day-old chicks, and they seem so fragile. Oh, I told you that I named them all. I put a ring on each of their little legs. Now, the little rings are very, very tiny, very small, only very small, coloured rings, a different colour for each of the chicks. And to put the ring on their legs, you have to put their legs together like this, their claws together, and then you can slide the ring over, and then their claws open, and the ring is here. So they had the names. There were eeni, meeni, and miney, and mo, and catcha, and nigger, and byistoe. I think I told you. That was all in episode 1. This is episode 2. I'm going to continue. I did tell you, when I worked in London, that my first job was about £3 a week, and my season ticket was 7 shillings and 6pence from Brockley to, I believe it went to London Bridge, and then I caught the tube to Westminster, okay, or St James's Park, and then walked to my office. So out of £3, I gave half to my mother, which is 30 shillings, £1 10 shillings. This is pre-decimalisation in 1972. And 7 and 6 for the season ticket for a week, not bad. Trains were always on time, exactly on time. I could run down to the station in about 7 minutes, and I would always stand at the same place on the platform. The train would always come on time. British Rail, no problems. Good old British Railways. And I told you I also had a post office savings account, and I put 5 shillings a week into my post office savings account. Right. Now I'll try and get back to the chicks. They did okay. They did very well, and they grew rapidly, quickly, and they got to about the age of 6 weeks when it was time to move them to a different location. I think gradually I had, when I said I put a 100-degree lamp, it wasn't a 100-degree bulb, it was at 100 watt. So that was my mistake from the episode 1. So, okay. Well, I'm 81 years old, and this is all going back many, many years to when I was 18 years old. And of course, my memory's good, but there are some things that you're not always 100% sure of. So I don't make things up. I try to tell you things as I remember them. I remember them. And 18, my job. I got my chicks when they were 6 weeks old. They were about this big. Their wings were developing. They couldn't fly, but they were developing. And I had my mother and father never complained. All the odd things that I've done in my life. I remember when I was a young boy, I had mice, which multiplied at a dramatic rate. I had rabbits. I've had fish in an aquarium. I've had budgerigars. I've done so many not weird things. Some have been not really weird, but I've always been into, and I've always loved bird watching. From a very young age, always out bird watching, and had quite a good collection of eggs, which is now illegal. Good collection of eggs, all in the countryside. I grew up in Bristol, born in Swindon in 1939, but after about a year we moved to Bristol. So I was there for the whole of the war, which I remember quite clearly. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about that another time. But back to my chicks, I found that Mum and Dad never complained, and they never said about the mess or the noise or nothing at all. They were ever so good about that, like that. And I've made mistakes in my life, but they've never criticised me. They've been very good parents, very good. And yeah, so I had a cupboard, which you could open the door to the cupboard, and in the cupboard was a shelf, about a metre square shelf. But of course, I soon discovered that if I put the chicks in there, they didn't need any heat, but there was a lamp for them, and there was the food and the sawdust as before, and the water. And I soon discovered, though, that if I went there to check on them and opened the cupboard door, they all jumped out. So I had to catch them and put them back. So then I put a little bar here. I don't know what, probably wood or something. I don't know, wood about this high. Can you see the height? Which they didn't jump over. But by that time they were about this tall. Oh, sorry, it's quite weird to do this. Yeah, and they were happy there, and I had them there, and the weather was getting warm, and I had in the garden I had a very old shed which hadn't been used for a long time, so I kind of made them nice perches within the shed. I think 2 perches, horizontal, a lower one and an upper one. And I made out of the old orange boxes. When we had oranges there, the greengrocers, the oranges came in boxes, quite big boxes, in 2 compartments. And many people bought these orange boxes and actually made furniture from them. I know one person who, I did use, I lived at one time in the attic listening to Radio Luxembourg in the middle of the night on 208 metres from Luxembourg. I like to hear all the pop music. And there I made out of an orange box. I painted it, and I put books there, and I had my little knickknacks there, and a little curtain, and I made out of that orange box a little chest. Anyway, the orange boxes that I got from the greengrocer, they were free. They gave them to you. A lot of the people, they would take those orange boxes, and I think we did as well at one time in Bristol. Old boxes which you would break up and chop up and use to light your fire. We had coal fires in Bristol, but in London, in Brockley, we didn't have coal fires. We had, I believe, we had some other form of heating. I'm not quite sure whether the radiators. It wasn't gas. It wasn't. I don't think it was central heat. No, it wasn't central. I think we just had electric heaters, quite expensive to run, but I think that's what we had. We didn't use paraffin. Paraffin heaters we used in Bristol, which that's another story. But back to Brockley with the chicks 6 weeks old in the cupboard now. I'm getting things ready for them to go outside and into the hen house. The orange box I made an aperture in the outside of the shed to fit the size of the orange box. And I made the orange box with a lid, with a flap that could be lifted. So when the hens were inside and they laid their eggs, I would go there maybe every morning or evening and open the lid, the nest boxes, and take the eggs. And the so when the chicks were about 2 months old or so, between 2 and 3 months old, they went into their own pen. They had the shed to go in at night, and I always remember that you have to train them to go in. They had a little, what they call a pop hole, and there was a little shutter there as well. So I could actually, when they were in there, I could, if I wanted to, put the shutter down so they couldn't come out. But to begin with, I had to train them. The first day that they were in that run with wire netting, they had a nice place, probably 3 meters by 6, plus the shed. And yeah, they had their food there. And by this time, then they were on a different food. The first food you give them is for young chicks, and then there's the next stage is for it's a different food, but you buy it in very big bags, 56 £6. And I told you I didn't have a car, but I did. I did. I bought that car. I told you I met my wife when I was 17 in 1957. I got married in January 1958. So I had bought the car before we were married in the December. Now in the December, I'd gone to a Christmas party at her firm. Now I worked in the Strand. Yeah, I'd moved jobs, by the way. Sorry about that. I had been in Parliament. I had been in Old Queen Street, and then I had got a better job with more money in T.G. Scott in Clements Inn, Strand. And it's very strange. We both used to we used to catch the same train at night, the 5:20 from Charing Cross. We always used to. She worked across the Strand for, I almost said Typhoon, but it wasn't. She worked for Typhoon, Twyman's. Sorry, Twyman's tea. It's a very well-known tea. Good, very good quality. She worked for Twyman. She was an invoice typist. Invoice typist. And yeah, and I was assistant production manager for T.G. Scott advertising. Good job. I enjoyed it. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you all this, because you might wonder if I had chicks and had to get big bags of food, like £56 bags of food, how would I transport them? I couldn't walk with them. I wouldn't use a bike, or I didn't have a barrow or a horse and cart. I'm not that old. Yeah, there were cars about in the 50s. And so I'm telling you about what happened before that Christmas in 1957. This is the December before we got married in January in 1958. That we were at a Christmas party. And I had my very nice teddy boy suit on, blue velvet, teddy boy hairstyle, teddy boy straight trousers, and teddy boy shoes, thick crepe soles, with the hair all greased and back, and a big quiff here. Oh, yes, yes. And yeah, at the party I was drinking alcohol. Can't quite remember what, because I didn't really. Oh, I was when I was 17. I wasn't very sophisticated. The first time I drank a pint of beer, I did what I saw some of the young men do and drink a pint of beer straight down. And I did that. The first time I did it, I was violently sick and had to get to the toilet. My stomach just rejected it. I still don't drink hardly at all. I don't think I've had a drink now for many years. But that's another story. But anyway, at this party I got drunk, and at that day every person, nearly everyone smoked. I smoked, my girlfriend smoked, everyone smoked. Smoking. No harm to you. No, not harmful. Smoke. Definitely not. No health risk in smoking. No, not at all. Smoke. Very good. Good cigarettes. Very good for you. And, okay. Now, I had been out I came across, and my wife was sitting at a table, and there was 2 or 3 young men around her. Maybe she knew them, but I didn't stop to find out. All I know is that she took a cigarette and put it into her mouth, and a young man took out a cigarette lighter and offered to light the cigarette for her, and I went berserk. You know, jealousy, possessiveness, I don't know. Young men do stupid things. So I attacked this. I attacked him. Floored him, and I thought that was the end of it. But later in the evening, I went down into the basement where they had the toilets, quite spacious. And I was there in the urinals, and I'd been having a wee, and I turned, and there was 4 of these big lads, and they attacked me. And it's the only time I've been really badly attacked at that time. And my suit was torn, my nose was bleeding, my mouth was bleeding, and I came up, and I think my girlfriend saw me, and she ordered a taxi for me, a taxi, and said, and I was quite drunk. I really was quite drunk, and they put me in the taxi, and they told the taxi driver to take me home, and he did. Now, the next day, I never missed a day's work as a rule, but the next day, because of the drinking the night before, I didn't go to work the next day. I was kind of hungover, I suppose you'd call it, hangover. And I asked my mother to phone in. Yeah, I did. I asked my mother to phone in to say I wasn't coming in because I had an upset stomach or something like that. And she did. So I didn't go to work. But what I did do, when I was feeling better about lunchtime, I decided to go to the newsagents down in Brockley, the little village with the shops, and buy a newspaper. And while I was there, I looked in the newsagent's window, and I saw a little postcard advertising a car. It was I believe it was little Morris Minor, and it was £25, and it was a 1932 Morris Minor for £25. So I told you I had saved my post office money. So I went to the post office. There was in Brockley, there was a little post office, and I drew £25 out, and I took a bus to a place called Catford, Catford, London, Southeast 6. And I found the address, which was on the postcard. I rang the doorbell of the house, and a lady came. Oh, in the drive there was a car, black car. I rang the doorbell. A lady came out, and I said, "I've come to inquire about you have a car for sale." The lady, oh yes, she said, yes. She said, it's my son's. It's here. It's the car in the drive. Oh, I said, okay. She said, would you like to test it? I said, okay, yes, thank you very much. So she gave me the keys, and I don't think it started on the battery. You had to start it with a handle on the front. You had electric starter. Batteries were often bad or didn't work very well, not like today's cars. And but the interesting thing is that between you and me, I'd never driven a car before. I'd never had a driving lesson. I'd never ever driven a car before, but I had watched my dad. He had a Jaguar, and I used to just watch what he did, and I could see that he changed gears. There was a lever there that he changed the gear. I never remember. I didn't ask him how to drive, but one day he had a garage. We lived in Bracebridge Road, Brockley, and he didn't leave his Jaguar parked outside. He rented a lock-up garage, which was about 400 or 500 kilometres down the road and up an alleyway to where his lock-up garage was. I remember going there one day with him, and he said to me, "Would you like to drive the car?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I sat in the seat. He told me what to do. You put your foot in the clutch. You put it into first gear. You let the handbrake off. You give the engine a few revs. Let the clutch up slowly, and he allowed me to drive only about 300 meters or 400 meters along this alleyway. So that is the only driving experience I've ever had in my life. And that had been some time before I ever thought of buying a car. So on that day that I bought the car, and the lady said to me, "Yes, you can test it." It was a quiet area, a quiet time of the day. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was in a quiet residential road in Catford. Sorry about my speech, but I've had a few problems with my speech, as you probably notice. I had a little stroke a few months ago, and I'm still not speaking as well as I should. But I think it's good to talk. I think it's very good to talk, even though it's hard to get your words out. It's good. It's very good to do this. So so I practiced for about 20 minutes driving the car up and down the road, around a few turnings, and I bought the car, and I said to her, "Can we get a little bit of a reduction on the price?" I said, "Because £25 is a lot of money. It's quite an old car." She said, "Would she said, what did you have in mind?" I said, "Well, I was thinking more like £17." Oh, she said, "I think that's okay." Yes, she said. So it's £17. So I paid her £17 for this 1932 Morris Minor, and I decided to spring a surprise on my girlfriend by driving the car to London in the traffic, which I'd never done before, but I drove it to London, and I parked it on the embankment next to the River Thames, on the Victoria embankment near the Temple Tube Station. It was December, it was snowing, the windscreen wipers didn't work. I put my hand through the window and keep the windscreen clean. The window wouldn't wind up, so the window was open all the time, so it was pretty cold. The handbrake didn't work, so I left the car in the gear, and the doors didn't lock. But apart from that, it was a very good. So okay, so I then met my wife not my wife, my girlfriend. She finished at 5. I finished at 5. I crossed the road to the Strand to meet her. She came out of her office, Twyman's, the tea manufacturer, tea importers, and I said to her, we usually walked along the Strand to Charing Cross, which is about a 15-minute walk, and we caught the 5:20. But this day, I said, let's make a change and walk down to the temple and walk along the embankment. Make a change. Oh, she says, all right, okay. Yeah. So we did. We walked through the temple, down to the embankment, and walked along. And then I stopped. She said, why have we stopped? I stopped and I turned my head and I said, get in. Just like that. Get in. She said, what? Get what? Get in what? I said, in the car. She said, the car? So I said, yeah, this car here. She said, you haven't got a car. I said, well, I've just bought it. I bought it today. She said, but you can't drive. You've never driven. I said, well, I drove it here. I drove it here. So she got in. Now, I don't know how long I've been recording this for. I think it's rather a long time. So I think I'm going to pause this here and continue the rest of this story because it's very, very interesting. What's coming next, you will be so surprised. You will be so surprised because you would think I'm making this up, but I am not. This is what happened. On that foggy night in December, a terrible thing happened. A terrible thing happened. But I'm here to tell the tale. So I just thank you for listening. I'm going to say, this is Tom saying good night and God bless and bye and thanks for listening.